let's get started. So first off, we need three wires. I'm going to use red, blue, and black because that makes sense. You don't have to use these colors, but it really does help. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to strip them. Okay, strip about a 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters on each side. So you can strip it like that, right? Just use your clippers, pull it off. But I like to, let's see if I can show you really close here. Here we go. So I like to just barely squeeze it, right? And then with the other side, now let's move this out of the way. I'm going to just barely pull it off just a little bit, right? There we go. And so just a tiny bit, and then I'm going to twist it off. And it's going to make a really tight little bundle there. Okay. So you don't have to do it that way. I mean, you can just, yank and pull, but do make sure to twist the other side if you do that. Okay. So do that to all three cables or all three wires. Okay, just a little bit, right? You saw how much I did. About a 1/4 inch on each side. There we go. Okay. Then we'll do the red. All right, so now we got our wires ready. Okay. So I got my soldering iron on. It's set to 700 degrees. Let's get some solder on these pads first on this ring. Okay. So let's see if I'm going to do that. What I need to do is take my solder here. I'm going to put pressure on the back of the pad, right? Okay. And then I'm going to run the solder along that pad into the iron. There we go. Okay, let's see if I can show you a little closer here. Let's get that. There we go. That's about right. Okay, whoops. Something like that. Okay. So, pressure on the back of the pad with the iron, right? Okay, then I'm going to take the solder and run it along the pad into the iron and then pull it off. There we go. Got this nice little bubble there. Okay, so remember, iron on, solder off, iron off. If you're having issues, you might want to put a little bubble or puddle of solder on your tip. So if you're going to do that, just add a little solder. Find where that puddle is. Put the puddle on the pad, and then add solder, and then pull the heat off. So heat on, solder off, heat off. And that's going to make these nice little bubbles there. You see that? See if we can get a side view. Kinda. So now our ring's ready to be soldered. Now we got to get our wires ready. Well, more than just cutting, right? We got to add solder to the wires. So I want to do something sort of similar here. Okay. I'm going to take my solder and make a little loop with it. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to put a little puddle of solder on the tip here. Let's find that puddle. Oh, so there it is. Okay, there's the puddle. Put the wire in that puddle and bring them both up into the solder at the same time. There we go. All right. And that is now tinned. So I'm going to do that to one side of each of the wires. Okay, let's do this one. There we go. And let's do this. Okay, cool. Now my puddle is getting a little big on my iron right now. So what I'm going to do is tap it. I don't like to sponge it. I don't like to use the brass, whatever, the cleaner, right? I always like my iron to be a little bit dirty. That way it doesn't corrode. A lot of people will be in the habit of, they clean their iron and then they put it away. But if you do that, you're going to corrode your tip. So never put your iron away dirty. If you clean it, always put solder in right afterwards and then put it away. That way it keeps care of the tip. Okay. So we got our wires ready. Now let's put the wires on the ring here. Okay. So this one's, well, none of this is easy, right? But this one can be especially difficult for people. Okay. So We have DI, which is data in. Let's see if we can show you guys it. There we go. DI, 5 volts and ground, right? DI, 5 volts and ground. Okay, so what we need to do is, well, I'm going to use, I'm going to go from bottom to top. So data input, DI, right? I'm going to put my wire on here. See if we can get it a little more in focus. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so my wire's on top of it, right? And then I want a little bit of a puddle on my iron to help transfer that heat really well. Okay, so I got a little bit of solder on my iron. I'm going to float on top of that DI and just put that puddle in there and gently let it fall into it. Then heat off. Oh, that's kind of ugly. Heat back on, heat off. There we go. That's a little nicer. Cool. And now it's on there good. Okay, next one's 5B. I'm going to use red for that. Okay, again, you don't have to use these colors. This is just what, oh, real quick, I'm actually doing it backwards here. I need to be going on the inside. Glad I caught that before I got too far. Which, as you saw, it was really easy to redo. So if you make a mistake, not to worry. Solder is very undoable. Okay. There we go. There's the blue. We'll do the red next. Okay. And then let's see, which side is tinned? That side's tinned. All right, we'll do the black. Whoops, there we go. Okay. Now we have the 3 wires, but if you look close, they're going a little bit over, right? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my flush cutters and gently cut them right to the edge of this here. There we go. And there we go. Cool. And I'll push them down. That looks better. All right. Sweet. Next thing we need to do is wire up the brain. Okay. So colors don't matter, but the pin connections very much matter. So you got to make sure you go 5 volts to 5 volts, ground to ground, and blue to either 2 or D4. If yours has a bunch of D's on it, make sure to use D4. Otherwise, go straight into 2. So let's see. If you look down here, oh, on the other side, on the bottom, there we go. The V-bus, ground, and 2, that's what I'm going to use. They're usually right next to each other. So yeah, V-bus, ground, and 2, or V-bus, ground, and D4. Okay, that's what we're going to solder into. And I like to come in from the top side. So, with a close-up view here, let's see. So it's this side, V-bus. Okay. So I'm going to put my red in here. There we go. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a kink there. And then let it sit. Just like that. Okay, that's sort of what you want to see. It angled up like that. I'm going to take my iron. Oh, it's a little bit dirty there. Tap it clean and then add some fresh solder. Okay, there we go. Now there's that ring, right? There's a ring that the wire's going through. Okay, so that ring there, the wire's going through it. You're going to want to put your iron against both the ring and that wire, okay, but very gently. So here I go. I'm going to put pressure both against the ring and that wire, and I'm going to add solder sort of between all 3, okay. Oops, there we go, and then solder off, heat off, and that's a beautiful solder joint right there. See if we can show that. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's do that again with the black or your ground, right? So ground of the ring goes to the ground of the chip if you're not using the colors. If you're using the same colors as me, then black goes to ground. Okay, another little kink there. Okay, I'll try to point it a little more towards you guys there. Okay. So pressure with the iron and then solder between all three until it grabs the ring. Oh, there it goes. Okay, cool. There we go. There's another one done. And then the blue one goes to D2. Okay, so here we go. A little bit of pressure on 2. And there it is. Cool. Okay. All right. Now we got our brain connected to our NeoPixel ring, right? Pretty fun, pretty exciting. What I'm going to do is I'm only going to trim the blue wire, okay? So I'm going to leave the black wire and the red wire long, right? But that blue one, the one that goes into D2 or D4 or number 2, I'm going to chip. But I'm always going to cover it. I'm not just going to let it fling around everywhere, right? I'm going to cover it here and then clip. That way it doesn't shoot around the room. Okay. Next thing we need to do is run our wire up our mushroom, okay? So your stem here, there's a little hole in the back. So I'm going to, I don't know, give this a little bit of a bend here and then put it in and push it through. There we go. Okay, and then pull it all the way through. Now this part's a little tougher. We got to get it through that center hole and out the side here, right? So I'm going to give this a good little, I don't know, a twist here. Like that. Okay. And then I'm going to run it through that center. And you might need to use pliers or like tweezers to get this, but I can usually, oh, there it is. Yeah, I can usually do it without. But feel free to use, tools, the right tools. And then let's bring that stem all the way up. There we go. Okay. Let's push this through a little more. Okay. So now we have this. If you don't have them prepped like that, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to, cut the sleeve off, and then each one of these, strip them and tin them. Okay? So since these ones come like this from the factory, it's going to make it easy. So on the back side, I have V-bus and ground, right? Or 5 volts and ground, whatever I have. These are pre-tinned, so I don't have to tin them. If yours aren't, make sure to tin them first. So I'm going to take solder here, put a little bit on my iron. Okay. You might want to use helping hands or have somebody you really like, who really trusts you, I guess, hold it. But we're going to need to solder these wires together. Okay. So let's do that here. Let's see if we can get a better view. Oh, there we go. Oh, the solder's in the way. That's funny. Okay. There it is. Okay, so they're just touching each other, right? Going across each other. I'm just going to heat them both up with that puddle and let them cool down. There we go. That one's soldered. Okay, then do the same thing for the black side, but I'm going to go up a little bit higher so I don't grab the data line. Okay, then let's see. Whoops, whoa, a little bit of heat. Wait till it transfers to that black wire. There we go. Cool. Okay. So yours should look something like that. All right. Yikes. Let's try to get a. Maybe I'll have to take a good picture of it or something. Yeah, okay. Anyways, yeah, make sure nothing is touching, right? Like there's, let's see if, there we go. That's a pretty good picture. For the 2, there's nothing touching like the 2 to the ground, and there's nothing touching the ground to the 5 volts here. So this is looking pretty good. Okay. Cool. Now I'm going to trim the rest of the black there. Okay, and then trim the red. Sweet. Okay, so looks like we're ready to program it. Okay, so I have USB-C. What you're going to do here is USB-C, USB micro, whatever they come in. Okay. I'm going to, well, I guess before I plug it in, let's go to the website first. Okay. So let's go to, I guess we'll start with the fresh page. Install.wled.me. Okay, that's the web page. We go to hit enter, and something like this should pop up. Okay. Let's get this in frame, and I guess I'm gonna flip it over so we can see the ring here. Whoa! Oh no! I've lost my mushroom. There we go. It's not fragile or anything, so if you drop it, if you kick it, if you chew on it, not gonna hurt anything. Might hurt you. Okay, so on the web page here, I'm not gonna mess with any of these settings. I'm just gonna hit install. So install, and you guys can't see the window that pops up, but basically there's a window that's asked, which do you want to install. I'm gonna now plug it in, and something should pop up. The thing that pops up, now I'm going to select it and hit connect. Okay, it'll say connecting, and then I want to install WLED. And am I sure? Yes, I'm sure. Okay. So if in a few seconds it doesn't show erasing, you might have an issue. This one does. Okay, this one shows erasing, so this one's working just fine. If it doesn't, there is a power button on the side of the chip here. As soon as you hit, so you hit install, then as soon as you hit, are you sure you want to install? As soon as you hit install there, tap that power button as you hit install, and that'll help it work. Now, if it doesn't work then you're going to need to try a different cable, restart your computer. I don't know. It might be the computer's fault at that point. If you're using a different chip, like I'm using an ESP8266 D1 Mini, I'll have a link to it on the Thingiverse page. If you're using this, then your chip's going to look exactly like mine. If you're using like a mini ESP232 or ESP32 S3, you might need to hold the boot button. Or if you're using a regular ESP32, anything that'll fit in that little slot there can work for this project. But I like these ones. They're a little bit cheaper, and all you're running is 16 pixels, so you're not asking a lot of it. Okay, installation should take about a minute or two. Looks like we're just about done. All right. So we know it installed correctly because it turned yellow like this. Okay. If we're at that point, we're doing good. So on the web page, I'm going to hit next. It's going to look for networks, but I'm just going to close it. I'm going to hit skip and close. Really don't have to do any of that. You can just unplug it. Right. So these things can be kind of tight, so pull hard. There we go. Okay. Now we have to somewhat assemble it, okay? But first, this ring might have a couple pimples on it on the side. See if I can show you that. Okay. So yeah, this shows this one. Whoops. There we go. That one's a big one, right? That pimple right there, the pimple out here, right? The pimple up top here. So we're going to need to sort of shave off those pimples. You can use sandpaper. I like to use my flush cutters and come in at a 45 or so and squeeze onto it. There we go. Okay. Now this one has some big pimples on the inside. Goodness. Okay. All right, that's looking pretty good. The next thing, you have to inspect your cap here. Now this cap does have a little bit of, goop there because I don't like to use supports. And so everything else turns out fine except for right there typically. And so if you have anything hanging on the inside, you're going to need to chew it out. So I'm going to go in there with my flush cutters and just sort of, nibble and pull until I have a flat area. And if it looks ugly down there, that's not a big deal. No one's going to ever see it. And it's going to be reinforced by the ring. Okay. Sweet. That should work. Okay. So now we actually have to put this thing together. So I'm going to pull this wire out. Then I'm going to aim the chip here so it's going to slide into the cap. Okay. There we go. Got it in there. Get a little further there. There we go. That chip is now implanted. Take the stem, put it through the ring. And now we can plant the ring. Okay. Stuff the wires in. And before we get too far, we need to make sure that our LEDs line up with the slots. Okay. So if we look really close, the LEDs, right? We need them to line up. Whoops, that's exactly wrong. There we go. That LED now is aligned in that slot, right? So before you actually push it down, make sure it's lined up and then push it in there. And it should, oh yeah, that one, oh, yeah, oh, there it goes. That's holding. Usually I don't trim the pimples so much, and the pimples help it hold, but this one is just in there gently. So I'm going to pull that and then keep pulling it, and now it's set, right? Okay, so let's do a final test before we actually glue everything together in the next video. Just give that a little bit. Before we get any further, we need to make sure we're actually all working here. So I'm going to grab a power supply and some power. Okay, let's plug in the power supply. This is 5 volts, 2 amps, this power supply. Make sure you're using a 5 volt power supply. And then here we go. Plugging it in, and it's yellow. Perfect. All right, so if you're at this point, you're doing awesome. Next video, I'll show you how to finish assembling it. Thank you for watching.